this was a hard lesson for me. I remember I had a breakfast club at my Chick-fil-A in Cordele, and I was pregnant with my first son, John Davis, and I was going, 90-0, then. And so it was a group of older gentlemen, and they came in every morning and ate coffee, and, they'd watch me buzz around. And so one morning they were like, hey, come sit down. And they kind of took care of me. I was like a daughter to them. They checked in all the time. But when they told me to do something, not only were they great customers, but it was like, you better listen to what they're saying. So
That's right.
I pulled up a chair and they said, if you spend so much time wishing you're in the next season, you're going to miss the one you're in. And so they said, with this baby coming, you're going to wish that you're out of diapers. You're going to wish that they could walk. You're going to wish that they could go to school. You're going to wish that they could go to college. And then when you're our age, you're going to wish you could do it all over again.
Wow, yeah.
And that has stuck with me, that
it.
lesson of just don't wish away your season, or you'll miss the one that you're in right now. So
yeah. Welcome to the Americus Podcast, where we're learning what it means to become a next level neighbor, creating a place we enjoy with the people we love. Today, I am joined by MeriBeth McNeill. MeriBeth, thank you so much for coming on the podcast with us.
Absolutely. It is truly my pleasure to be here.
MeriBeth, you are a wife, a mother, the Chick-fil-A operator right here in Americus, Georgia. Thank you so much for bringing that joy to us. Thank you for being on the podcast. I would love to hear, we're almost kind of getting through the summer as we're filming this. How has your summer been? What does summer look like for you right now?
It's been a great summer. This is my first summer having the Chick-fil-A here in Americus. So for 10 years, I had a Chick-fil-A that was right on the interstate. So summer was full of serving lots of traveling guests. And so this has probably been the first one in a long time we've really been able to enjoy, and I've been able to spend a lot of extra time with the boys. And so keeping them occupied is always a little bit of a challenge in the summer. So we've had a good summer checklist going with the boys.
Nice.
But yeah, we've got a lake trip coming up here the end of July. So that'll be fun where I'm from. We go up to Lake Hartwell and spend a few days on the lake. So we're looking forward to that.
Nice. All right. So yeah, you've got a few of those things. Have you been able to do any traveling to the beach or anything? Are you a beach person, mountain person, kind of what? Yeah,
we haven't done beach. We do love the beach. But kind of with the ages of my boys right now, I'm not going to lie, it's a lot of work to take them. A few years ago, they're 8, 6, and 3.
Okay,
and
yeah.
So probably 2 years ago, we went down to 30A and we got kicked off the beach for throwing sand. And so we just kind of said, you know what, we're just going to wait a few years until we try the beach again. So we did a trip with Disney. They got that for Christmas.
Oh, wow.
And so we did that like in April. And so this summer has been kind of a staycation year for us. And so we try to alternate those.
Was that your first time going to Disney World?
No, we've done Disney a few times. We love Disney. We're Disney people. So
that's awesome.
But yeah, the boys love it. So we had a good time. We just went for a long weekend. So that was fun.
That's great. This is actually, I think, our second summer here. We moved here in April, but we were kind of moving in, so it was just a lot. But yeah, we've really enjoyed our summer as well. Now, I got a chance to meet you. I mean, obviously, I've seen you at Chick-fil-A, but we were actually at the same event. There was the Chamber of Commerce event. It was an annual event, and then we were there. They had dinner and some awards, and I saw you, and you were serving with a smile, and you were just there. I was so encouraged by that. It was one of the ways that we got a chance to even talk about this podcast. But I was sharing with you a little bit before the podcast that my family, we love to have people over for dinner. Sometimes 30 or 40 people. So we're always looking for tips on how to better plan for those types of things. So whether it's an expert advice or just your own experience, like how do you plan for people coming over at your house, 30 or 40 people, just ready for food and festivities? What does that look like for you?
Yeah, well, I would like to say that, hospitality is one of my gifts. It's obviously one of the reasons I pursued Chick-fil-A. I don't know. I think back, I probably learned it best from my grandmother. So my grandmother cooked lunch for my entire family every Sunday. Cousins, aunts, uncles, we ate at her house every Sunday. And so she would have this just huge meal. She made sure to have, one of everybody's favorite. She just anticipated like the needs really well. Like I can remember like your tea glass would never get low. She was just always on it. But she just served so well. And I was thinking about that chamber event. Honestly, for me, events like that, like kind of those frou-frou events, I actually enjoy serving more than I do attending. So it just was more natural for me to kind of jump in and put me to
you're
work.
like looking for stuff.
Yeah. And I know, I've been in the hospitality business for, almost 15 years now with Chick-fil-A. And so I know kind of the pressure that's on the other side of that when you're, catering an event for a lot of people. Like it's a lot of pressure and it gets kind of hectic. So anything I can do to help the caterer or whoever it might be, I love to jump in if I can. I love that.
And again, Chick-fil-A is known for their customer service. It is above par. I love the model, and we'll talk a little bit about that as well. But again, you were there just as a person, not necessarily as a representative. You were just looking for a ways to serve. You had already talked about a little bit with your grandmother. Tell me a little bit more about where this comes from. Where does this value system come from of your heart, your servant's heart?
Yeah, I think just over time, being in leadership, and I know we'll probably talk about my past and how I grew up a little bit, but I just have found that to find true joy, it really does come from serving others. And I think that's a lesson I probably have not always known. I look back on a lot of my life and it was very self-serving, whether I'd like to admit it or not. But that's really where true joy is found. And so that's really the heart of that. And so not only does the Bible teach us that, but even Truett Cathy, who created Chick-fil-A, he really believed in servant leadership. And so when I started at Chick-fil-A, he was still working there every day. And so I got to see that modeled by him. I remember a day when I was interning. I started at the corporate office in Atlanta.
Okay. What year was that?
So this was in 2009. I was at the corporate office. So I tell people I'm a dietitian gone bad. I sell fried chicken now. Yeah. So my degree, I'm actually a dietitian. And so I first started at corporate in Atlanta, and I was working, did some of their menu development work at the support center. And so I happened to, ride the elevator. Truett got on the elevator. I was super nervous. I was just an intern. Yeah. And he was headed towards a big meeting, but it was flooding outside. And they normally kept all these umbrellas in the atrium for staff, if it started raining, that they could grab one and take it to their car. Yeah. And so Truett noticed that there was none in the normal space where they kept them. And so he had his driver that was a good friend of mine too. And he's like, is there no umbrellas? And he said, well, no, but I'm sure they can get it taken care of. He said, no, we're going to take care of it right now. And so, canceled any meeting he had that afternoon, and him and his driver went to every local place to buy up every umbrella that they had. Love it. So that the staff could have umbrellas when they left that day. And that's just a little story, but I remember as an intern, watching him lead in that way. And it was powerful for me to see, the founder, hey, no, it's more important for me to go buy umbrellas right now for my staff to have. So,
yes. Yeah. I love that. There's so many, obviously it's easier to teach these concepts, but when you live those concepts, which we'll be talking about in just a minute, it's so much easier to catch, because you look at that and you go, okay, I might not know how to state that, but I know what it feels like,
Yeah.
and I know I can work towards that as well. I mean, it's a beautiful picture of a servant leadership, definitely. All right, so yeah, let's talk a little bit about you growing up. So you had mentioned on your form that you have been here for a few years. So tell me a little bit about kind of growing up. Tell me where are you from? Tell us a little bit about your family dynamics.
So my husband would tell you I'm a hillbilly. So he brought me from the hills of North Georgia.
He saved you
to
right.
Nat country down here. But no, so I grew up in Northeast Georgia in a little town called Livonia, not Lithonia, Livonia.
All right.
It's actually smaller than Americus.
Wow,
And
okay.
and so grew up there. My dad was like this legendary high school football coach there. The football field's actually named after him. So
That's
grew
cool.
up a football coach's daughter, and so I think that's a large part of who I am today. And then my mom was the elementary school music teacher, and so I had her in elementary school, and then she was also on staff at our church as well as a music minister. So she kind of doubled up. And and so met my husband Jess, who is from Americus. He's a 7th generation farmer here.
Okay.
And met him at the University of Georgia on a blind date.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah. One that
All right,
actually.
let's take a few steps back. How did that happen?
Okay, so this is a cool story. So I was actually president of my sorority at the time, and we were already on probation, the sorority, when I became president. So I was like, nothing else can go wrong in any event.
That's
so
right.
I didn't even take a date to events because I was like, I've got to be on it, you know.
Yep.
And so one of my sorority sisters, she was dating a guy that was in the same fraternity as my husband Jess, and so he found out I wasn't taking a date, and he was like, no, you've got to. I've got the perfect guy for you. And he said, you're going to name your first kid after me. I mean, he was that sure of it.
Yeah.
And it was interesting because it was this same weekend the tornado came through Americus because he called Jess, and Jess was actually home working in Americus, and it had come right through the farm, the tornado. And so when he had him on the phone, I was like, oh, thank goodness. He's not going to be back home to go on this date night. And he, of course, he's like, oh, yeah, I'll cut free T-shirt. I'm there. Absolutely. Yeah. And so he drove back to Athens, and I had to host a golf tournament that morning. And I was like, I'm going to make sure I didn't shower. I was 30 minutes late picking him up. I mean, it was like how to lose a guy in 10 days kind of deal.
Yep.
That's what I was going for.
Man,
and
he's like challenge accepted.
Yeah. And that night I told my mom I'd marry him, and he told his mom he'd marry me. We knew. Yeah. So they went on a blind date, and the rest is history.
I love that. Okay, so growing up, you had mentioned a little bit about I think you used the term like just kind of self-focused, kind of growing up. Tell us a little bit about some of the things that you experienced growing up, kind of what your previous school before college, like what was life like with just being you?
Yeah, so, my dad was this kind of, everybody knew Coach Davis. And I mean, I had an amazing family. All my aunts and uncles were right there. We call it the village because it does kind of feel like when they say it takes a village, it was truly a village kind of mindset. Yeah. So, all my aunts and uncles taught in the school system. I mean, everybody was right there.
So you weren't getting away with anything?
Oh, nothing. I mean, I got a speeding ticket. They knew about it before I got home because it was typically one of my dad's former players.
Yeah.
I didn't get away with anything. And so my mom was the music teacher. So, and I don't know, I think it's just the way God created me. But I've always kind of felt this pressure to please, to please others. And especially having mom in music, dad in athletics, it was like, okay, you got to be the well-rounded.
Yeah, that's right. You got to be the athlete that can play a couple instruments.
You got to do it all. And so, and I had such a desire to please them. And I don't think it came from them, but just really that was so important to me, and the success of just worldly success, what that looked like. And so I think for so much of my life, it was driven by that. And I don't know if, we get to this now or a little bit later of kind of where this whole joy thing has come from. But Yeah, and so I probably in third grade began having. They thought they were asthma attacks, but it ended up being panic attacks, and then that, as I got older, spiraled into full blown eating disorder, and so that was years. And so for a lot of my life, like I said, it was driven by kind of this desire to please, but. So that's kind of
because we're gonna
what I'm doing now.
I'd love to get into obviously how you have found a better way of living, but how did you cope with some of those things? What were the things that you were trying to fix that that pressure that you felt? Was it just hanging out with friends? Was it engaging in activities? What was that? How were you trying to fix it outside of just this joy that we're going to be talking about?
Yeah, I think that was it. I think I was trying to fix it, and that was the problem. And, when you're driven by kind of the, worldly success or this desire to please others, it's just like a never ending cycle. I mean, it's almost like a drug, you do this, then you go back for more and you go back for more. You accomplish this, well, then it's on to this. And so it was just this exhausting, never ending cycle. And let me get I had an incredible family, mom, dad, and an amazing church growing up. Again, this was just something I experienced at an early age, but has really played a big part into kind of my mission that I live with today. So
that's amazing. And I'm really looking forward to, because we're going to get there in like 5 minutes. But I really love that, because sometimes we look at those moments and we realize that God was preparing us. Like I think about David, right? David was a shepherd. We're like, that's a very insignificant, no one really wanted that job. It was a dirty job. It was a stinky job. You were by yourself all the time. But what God was preparing him for was to be a king over people. And sometimes people act like sheep, right? So it's like, what am I doing here that allows the Lord to prepare me for what I'm about to experience? So even though those things were real and there's suffering and there's grief, like you said, there's future purpose in that. So, and you had to go through that to be able to be where you're at today. So thank you for sharing that, that experience. So growing up, if you're in high school and you're going through, did you know that you were going to do Chick-fil-A stuff? I mean, where was your mind? Like, what did you want to do?
So it's crazy. So, I think that's part of it. From an early age, I always wanted to be a doctor, and in my mind, it was to help people. Like that's what I would have said. But I think it all, when I got into my senior year of college, so right out of high school, again, I got a very small town. Love the small town life, and I had a great high school and experience, but went to Georgia, and that was somewhere I was actually, I hate to admit this, but I was actually going to Auburn. And we visited, the last visit, my dad was like, what about the Hope Scholarship? Do you not understand? And so kind of the last minute change, went to Georgia, and, I'm so glad I did. I met Jess and all the things. But
Did anyone else go to Georgia from your family, or was it like
my mom graduated from Georgia. Okay. My dad, he played football at a smaller school called Wofford. So so my mom did, but and I would say they're definitely Bulldogs for sure. Since much bigger Bulldogs now that paid a lot of money there, but I always wanted to be a doctor, and but my senior year in college, so I graduated with a pre-med degree, everything. I've never taken a business class in my life, which is funny now that I'm running a business. So I just started wrestling with feeling like this was not what I was called to do. I was working at a doctor's office at the time, and just the fulfillment was just not there. And I think it went back to, well, why am I really doing this? And I think in the small town that I grew up in, it was either like, to be successful, you became a doctor or a lawyer. Like those were kind of the things that were put on the pedestal. And of course I had just set that in front of me that was what I was going to do. And And so, but really started bowling back to, okay, well, what do you enjoy doing? Like, what makes you happy?
Yeah.
And so it was this summer between my junior and senior year, I needed an extra job to make some extra money. And I had worked at this awesome barbecue restaurant in high school, and I loved it. Like, I chopped hams there for 7 years. Loved it.
That's awesome.
And so I was like, well, somebody had told me Chick-fil-A would work with your schedule. And so I got a second job there and got to know the operator. And long story short, just realized, man, I actually feel like I'm helping more people at Chick-fil-A than I even am working at the doctor's office. And it was just, I found more fulfillment there. And definitely felt like it was played more into my strength zone. It reminded me, being back at the barbecue restaurant, which I had loved. So
yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah. So gave up medical school. I remember calling my dad.
I was about to say, like, what was
hey, this degree, I'm just going to stay, working at the cash register at Chick-fil-A. And that's what I did. Graduated from Georgia with a pre-med degree and told my professors, hey, not going to medical school anymore, and took the chance. I started at corporate, I already said that. Yeah. But then I just really missed being in the restaurant, and I missed, my dad was an incredible football coach, and I think watching him and the way that he invested in so many young people, I knew I wanted to do something like that. But again, I thought I could do that through medicine because he just changed so many lives through his coaching career. Wow. I mean, he's like a father figure to so many. And so I actually saw kind of my operator getting to do that in the Chick-fil-A restaurant. And so it just kind of all started fitting together. But so after corporate, decided I wanted to come back and work in the restaurant. Wow. And then plus I knew Jess didn't want to live in Atlanta either.
Yeah, I was going to ask, like, what was that conversation like with him?
Yeah, he was an Americus small town boy.
He's like, that sounds great.
Yeah.
We could do that.
Yeah. Well, it's funny. He had a fraternity brother and his dad was an operator. Okay. And so Jess looked into it first before I did, because he was still, when I met Jess, he was never moving to South Georgia, never going to farm, did the whole, and so he was kind of searching too. And he looked into it, but Jess loves being outside and working with his hands. And so it wasn't exactly a fit for him, but he was like, sounds like something you'd enjoy doing. So, so we kind of pursued that, and then the rest is history.
What do you think? Cause I think about, this is probably I would assume this is kind of one of those peeling back of those layers of, okay, am I doing this for others, or am I really trying to figure out what my purpose is? So would you feel like that is one of those huge turns of peeling back that so that you can find out your purpose of, man, I really want to serve people, and I feel like this is the thing that's actually giving me what I've been lacking, and this is the step forward. Obviously that was a very difficult probably conversation because you just didn't know how people were going to respond, but would you say that was one of those moments?
Yeah, I think, and we'll probably talk about this in a minute, but it's this whole spill joy idea. I have these 5 truths, that they're
let's step into that. So tell us a little bit about it.
Okay. So spill joy is really kind of this personal mission, lifestyle. Not only is it my personal business mission, but it's now it's our business, vision and mission statement as well too. So when I was working at the Chick-fil-A in college, I think I was sharing with you that my operator there gave me this quote, and it was about the art of living, and it talked about the art of living is a person who has one mission and they pursue it with everything in them, and they don't know whether they're working or playing or if it's they just do it all at the same time. And in college, obviously then I clearly knew whether I was studying, working, playing. I mean, they were very, and really growing up, it was like you wanted to keep those separate, work, family. And so this was so intriguing to me, this idea that it could be all done together. And so I've kept it for years and years. I mean, I still have and probably a few years ago is really when I started thinking, man, I really wanted to get to a place that I could I don't want to say I've mastered the art of living, but what was my personal mission that I'm teaching at home to my kids, but also, our team members at work are living it out. And so Spill Joy, it's very personal to me because I do feel like it took me a long time in life to really experience like what is joy and what does it mean to live in joy so much that we would spill it out onto other people. And so it's actually based on one of my life verses, Romans 15:13, where we have a God of hope. And so we should be full of joy and peace, and overflow is the word that it uses. But Spill Joy is kind of
I love
catchy.
that.
So that's where it came from. And so obviously, even at Chick-fil-A, we want our 15-year-old team members to, hey, what's our mission here? Spill joy. That's it.
Yeah.
But in order to spill joy, you got to be full of joy. And so what are the steps of that? And so the first one, it's just what you're talking about that I had to discover that senior year is purpose. I'm created with a purpose is the first truth. And so I think we're all created with the same purpose, right? To glorify God. That's our purpose.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, we spend so much time and energy trying to find what our purpose is, but it's really already been determined for us.
Yeah.
And so what we have to do is find like what's our mission that where we can live out our purpose the best. And so for me, it was working in the restaurant. Like I just felt like I glorified God the most in that environment. And I could continue to do that for years and years and years. It was fun. I enjoy hospitality. I enjoy working with young people. I enjoy being on so that was kind of that senior year. I realized, hey, this is my mission. This is it. And I feel like I could really spill joy here. And so, so they were, my dad he completely behind it. He was like, if that's what you love to do, then that's what you need to do. Yeah. If you're passionate about it. So
I love that. And I think, just being a pastor, but also just being a father, being a husband. I mean, there's so many things we were talking about earlier. There's just a lot of distractions that don't allow us to meditate on some of these really deep truths that will actually satisfy the soul that we're really longing to figure out, right? I mean, because there's so many things that could say, hey, look, this is shiny over here, pay attention to this. And we don't know how to process this. And we kind of get the same cycles you talked about before of, okay, well, I feel uneasy, so I'm going to go and distract myself for 30 minutes, an hour. And then we come back with just as much, anxiety or frustration.
Yeah.
But being able to ask those questions, they're very important. And a lot of times you need community to help you process that because sometimes you don't know yourself as well. And so you're kind of getting that. That's why like things like church are so important because people get to pour into you and family gets to pour into you. But I think that's so important that we ask ourselves, what is our purpose, and really be able to try to work through that. And it may take years. I mean, you talked about earlier that, spill joy is one word that probably didn't start off by saying spill joy. It started off by saying something that probably looked like two pages.
Yeah.
And you kept working it and working it and working it and working and going, these are the ingredients that took for me to get there. And I think that is what that shows me is continual work on your mission to be able to clarify it for others. Yeah. So that's huge. So you said 5, there's 5 elements?
So there's 5 truths. So the first one is, I'm created with a purpose. And so again, I think we all have the same purpose, but it's discovering your mission because, I'll meet with a college kid and they have no clue what they want to do. And they are completely stressed out about, and, or then I'll meet with a empty nester and it's a mom who's completely kind of lost her purpose because her kids have left. And so, to me, your purpose never changes. Your mission can change though, right? Like throughout your life. Yep. And so, but it's important to never lose it because that's what gets us up in the morning, right? Is that mission. Yeah. And so, That's number one. Number two is I'm uniquely made. Just really understanding the way that you are uniquely designed, and being okay with your strengths and your weaknesses. You know, I've done, thousands of interviews since I've been with Chick-fil-A and team members. And, you know, if I had to say, I would say 95% of people have no idea of their strengths and weaknesses, or, you know, their weaknesses, they definitely can't laugh about them, right?
Yeah.
They're not as confident in their weaknesses as they are their strengths. And so I think when we get to a place where we're just as confident in our weaknesses as we are our strengths, that's when we stop comparing, which is the thief of joy, you know, and we can be completely fine with who we are. And, you know, we just understand that the way we're uniquely made. And so we can make better decisions on what to be involved in, how to invest our time, all those things. And that aids to us having joy more. So that's number two. I'm uniquely made.
Let's stop there because I want to talk a little bit about that. Yeah, and then we'll go to number three. We'll just we'll do that. I really love that. It reminds me of, again, just being self-aware, right? Being able to acknowledge how God created you. And I think one of the things that are really, really important is being able to not just acknowledge that, but don't feel like you have to cover up or compete. Right? Because if we know what our weakness is, we feel like we have to cover it up and not be able to express it. Well, the reality is that when you're on a team, if we know each other's weaknesses, we can actually benefit one another by implementing certain things for those weaknesses. So if we're not self-aware, we won't know. But if we are self-aware and we try to cover it up, it's gonna affect the whole team. And so we want to be careful not to do that, or at least, and then you start competing, which is where we get that, like, you know, I have this weakness, but you know, I'm gonna try to outshine you so that I feel bad about my weakness. So I think that's really, really huge. Another element, of knowing what your purpose is, knowing what your mission is, and then being able to identify not just your strengths and your weaknesses. So, I mean, if you're listening to this right now, go list them. Go list out your strengths and weaknesses. Like you said, I would assume that with all the Chick-fil-A meetings, that's probably one of the things that just always come up. Like, hey, what are your weaknesses?
So I was in a leadership class with Chick-fil-A early on, and this was a pivotal learning for me. I'll never forget it. And it was with Andy Stanley, and he said, you know, your weaknesses will always be your weaknesses. Stop focusing on them. And for my whole entire life, I mean, from an early age, we you know, from report cards to, you know, we're kind of taught and trained to focus on those and make them better. And so every, you know, New Year's resolutions are made on, hey, I'm going to be more organized. I'm never going to be. If you look to my backpack right now, it's like folded up pieces of paper all in the box. I mean, it's horrible, you know, and so it's like, I've just given up on that. I'm going to surround myself with someone that is really organized. And because I'm going to quit wasting energy on, you know, these things that I'll never be great at. They kind of suck the life out of me. But instead, I'm going to live in the things that I enjoy and I'm going to do well. And I'm okay, you know, laughing about how unorganized my
And I love the phrase you just used. You said, surround myself with people that are organized. Which means that you need to be dependent upon people, which makes community and teamwork so valuable because you recognize the value that other people are giving because they have those strengths. And so if you if you know what your weaknesses are, you surround yourself. That's a great. All right. So that's number two. What's number three?
Number three is embracing your season. I'm meant for this season. And so oftentimes, you know, I meet with a lot of team members and customers too. And, you know, they've lost their sense of joy because of a tough season that they're in or just kind of lost their way. And so I think, but when we have the mindset that, hey, we got to be exactly where our feet are and I'm going to make the most of the opportunities, you know, and kind of what you were talking about before, you know, with David, it was like, you know, he was there for a reason. And so we've got to believe that in seasons. And I think life is just that. It is full of seasons. And I had a great mentor at Chick-fil-A who kind of helped me learn that. He would check in and he'd say, how's the business? And, I'd say, oh man, things are going great. I've got a great team. I mean, just awesome. Things are great. And he would say, that's good. Don't forget, a winter's coming. Or I would see him another time and I would say, oh, it's so hard. I'm working 6 days a week. And he would say, hey, spring's right around the corner. And just a reminder that everything in life does come as a season, and we are to embrace that season and make the most of it. And even those trials we can learn from. And so, I think that when we're able to do that, we won't lose our sense of joy as much when those difficult times come.
Yeah, I love that. I mean, and I, again, being in ministry or just being a part of a family, I mean, things happen. Traumatic events happen. Grief is real. I say all the time that grieving comes in waves. We feel like, certain things like, well, I'm sad about this, but if I can just kind of get over it, I think grief is a wave. I mean, it comes and then it goes away and then it comes. But I also believe as a pastor that grace comes in larger waves. So as the wave comes of grief, you're able to kind of be soaked in. And so you're embracing that season is what you're saying. And I love that because we feel like if something's going wrong, I must be doing something wrong. Well, maybe it's just the season that you're in. And so I think that it's very valuable to make sure that we are engaged in that moment, in that season, but recognize that there is something even more solid than our season, right? And that's why, being a Christian, I'm saying...
That's right.
I know that there's suffering and it's real, but I know that there's ultimately something that's more stable than anything else, and he's consistent. He's the name above all names. He's the same yesterday, today, and forever. Right. I can cling on to that, and that could get me to that next place. So
absolutely. This was a hard lesson for me. I remember I had a breakfast club at my Chick-fil-A in Cordele, and I was pregnant with my first son, John Davis, and I was going, 90 to nothing, then. And so it was a group of older gentlemen, and they came in every morning and ate coffee, and, they'd watch me buzz around. And so one morning they were like, hey, come sit down. And they kind of took care of me. I was like a daughter to them. They checked in all the time. But when they told me to do something, not only were they great customers, but it was like, you better listen to what they're saying. So that's right. I pulled up a chair and they said, if you spend so much time wishing you're in the next season, you're going to miss the one you're in. And so they said, with this baby coming, you're going to wish that you're out of diapers. You're going to wish that they could walk. You're going to wish that they could go to school. You're going to wish that they could go to college. And then when you're our age, you're going to wish you could do it all over again.
Wow, yeah.
And that has stuck with me, that lesson of just don't wish away your season, or you'll miss the one that you're in right now. So
yeah. That's awesome.
Yeah.
All right, I have to go back to a previous question or a statement.
Okay.
You mentioned if you married this guy that you would name, is his name John Davis or did he not get it?
No. So we didn't name him after him. We didn't name him after him. And we have laughed about it since. Yeah. No, John Davis is our first and he's named after both of our dads.
Okay. So, all right. That's fine. I just wanted to make sure that,
no, we didn't. He gives us a hard time.
Yeah, I was about to say, that's right.
I told you to name him after me. Yeah.
That's great. All right. Okay. So are we on the third one or fourth one right now?
So that was fourth. Okay. No. Now we're on fourth.
Okay. Yeah. Let's go.
I'm created to serve people. And so that's what we were talking about earlier is I do think that there's just this sense of joy that can only be found in serving and loving other people well.
Yeah.
And again, that's been something I've had to grow and learn in. This story is embarrassing for me to tell. It's hard for me to tell, but it was probably one of the most eye-opening things of how I realized, man, I'm just not seeing and loving people well. I was early on in my career as an operator, and there was a high school kid back there washing dishes. Okay. And I was at this point, things were not going well. I mean, it was our first year open. It was hard. So I was, again, like working as hard as I could to fix it. Yeah, that's certainly not the way. And, just thinking Chick-fil-A is going to drive down here any moment and take my keys away and be like, this girl really doesn't know what she's doing, because I didn't. So I didn't want him to know the secret, that I didn't. And so this guy's back there washing dishes. I go back there. I'd already told him to clock out. Mm-hmm. So I come back there a second time. I'm like, we'll just call him Steven. I'm like, Steven, I already told you to clock out and go home. And I said, it's a Friday night. Wow, that was loud.
That was
You're washing raw chicken dishes. Go home. Do you not have anything better to do? You're in high school. Go back up front. Look back there an hour later. He's still there washing dishes. I open the door, come running back there. And by this point, I'm like, listen, I'm going to fire you if you stay on the clock any longer. At this point, it's insubordination.
Yeah.
And he looks at me and he goes, he puts the dish down and he looks up and he slowly turns and he goes, Miss B, that's what they all call me, Miss B. Miss B, I clocked out 4 hours ago, but I would rather be here than at home. And in that, it was like, golly, you're the worst human ever, is the way I felt. But it was this moment of like, man, I really missed it. Like I missed the opportunity to show love to Stephen, and because I was so caught up in what I was trying to accomplish. And so that was a pivotal moment for me in just realizing the importance of loving and serving people. And I think we do that in three ways. We have to see them, which is what I wasn't doing. We have to make the space for them, which is time, have the time for them. And then we have to believe and expect the best. Yeah. And so, just encourage someone is that sometimes the greatest gift we can give them. And so, but what we'll find is the return of joy for ourselves. So, and what's been neat in this book that I'm writing is all these truths. I've found kind of data and studies to back up, these truths, so people that serve people on a regular basis. There's all kind of data behind it that they're less likely to be put in the hospital. They live longer. It's incredible. There's more ties to it than even diet and exercise. Wow. So it's really cool. A lot of these truths that, but anyway, so that's number 4.
No, I love that. Thinking about in Genesis, God creates Adam and Eve, and then he gives them work. And sometimes if I'm not paying attention, I'll think that work is a part of the curse, but it's not. Yeah. He gave them something to steward and to serve and to do. And it's a part of that, the joy, the part of the goodness that we have. And we get to be a part of that. I think I've noticed that as well. Maybe if someone comes in for counseling and they're feeling very sad, maybe even going through some depression, that's one of the things that I give counsel for is, hey, why don't you take 10 thank you cards and just start writing out how thankful you are to certain people that have invested into your life, and then go find something to be a part of, to serve. And it really does, because we weren't created to be self-absorbing. We were created to be self-giving. And I love that. So, it's definitely one of the major components, and I'm so glad that it's there, because it's not just something to do. And again, the way that you said it, it's for them. I see them. It's not I need to feel better, so therefore I need to go do this. Right. It is, I actually see them. I actually want to see them succeed. And I know even as an operator, obviously you would love to have talented people, but you're investing into them, so eventually they might even go somewhere else. That's so you're like, I might not even get the benefits of what I'm investing into, but I'm not doing it for me. Yeah. I'm not even doing it for this Chick-fil-A. I'm doing it for that person. So, and that creates something in us. So I'm glad that you're writing on that. I'm glad you're putting that together. That's going to be a huge benefit for people. So.
Yeah.
All right.
And then the 5th one.
Yes.
This has kind of been the last point that I've had to, I'm created to live life intentionally. And this has probably been the hardest one because I think if we are going to spill joy, we've got to get rid of the killjoys in our life. And so that's been kind of the last 2-year journey for me, is figuring out what are those killjoys in my life that I need.
Can you give some examples of that?
Oh man, well, I can give a big one for me. It was my phone, and so that was a big killjoy. I felt like 2 years ago, I would get to the end of my day, or somebody would say, well, how's life? And I would respond with, I'm busy. And I was like, man, I feel like, I was busy, you know, I've got 3 kids and a business and stuff, but I didn't want that to be my first response. And really what it boiled down to is I felt like no one was getting my best. Like my kids weren't getting my best. My husband wasn't getting my best. I wasn't my best at work leading the business. And it was because there was just so many distractions in the day that I really couldn't be where my feet were. Yeah. And so I took some pretty drastic measures. And so my phone, I went through, and that was where I found that a lot of my time was going that was just completely unnecessary. So I've done everything from, so literally nothing is on my phone if it's not used as a tool. If it wastes time, it's, off. Yeah. I don't have the internet browser on my phone anymore. I can text, make phone calls. And it's been one of the most life-giving things I've ever done. I was sharing with you earlier, I almost feel like this, there was a sermon yesterday at church on this, but I almost had this childlike wonder again about life, just noticing the small things that are right in front of me that I'd forgotten because I was spending so much time doing this, or my mind was here, but my kids are right here playing, and that moment's gone, you know? And so now I feel like mind, body, and soul, I can, right now I'm with you completely, you know? And so that's been the biggest benefit to it.
I love it. That is, we've got to be fighting. We have to be fighting the things that are also distracting us just as much as we're engaged in the things that we know that we should be going after. So, all right. So really quickly, give me Spill Joy. Give me the 5, just one right after the other, as far as the ingredients to have a what did you call it? A Spill Joy life, or how do you describe that?
It's almost like a lifestyle, but I think ultimately for us truly to experience joy, we have to have Jesus. It boils down to that, and I say that kind of at the beginning of the book, but we can lose our sense of joy very quickly, and I think it's in these 5 things that most of us do most often. And so one is, I'm created with a purpose. I'm created uniquely. I am created for this season. I'm created to serve others, and I'm created to live life intentionally. And so those are the 5. So we'll see. Right now, it's just a long diary that I'm working on. Leave for my boys that they'll never read.
Like you said, it's the work that you're putting in that helps even me kind of shape up some of my framework. So thank you so much for sharing that. It's huge. And I hope that it catches on, and I hope that people can be, like you said, even freed from some of those things that distract them, but also pursue the things that God's called them to.
And what's been fun is even so what does that look like at home, raising our boys? So one of the things that Jess and I, so it kind of ties in, before they were born, we were like, okay, if there's 5 things we want our kids to be able to do, what are they? And it wasn't like be the smartest or have a high school degree. It was like, these are the 5 things. And so we call them the McNeill must. And, so they're a little bit different than Spill Joy, but we go over it with the boys, and they have to recite them every Sunday, and we've got it kind of in their reading room, but they're very similar. But it's kind of like, okay, if they can do these 5 things, we feel like they'll live out spilling joy the most. So it's kind of tying it all together. Yeah. All right.
So, getting into even just Americus and how I do know. So you were an operator in Cordele, and then how did that transition work to get to Americus? Just real quick.
So we moved back in 2011, actually left Chick-fil-A because there was no shot of a Chick-fil-A coming anywhere around. And so at that point, it was time for Jess to move back, take over the family farm. Yeah. And so we left Chick-fil-A. And it was, there was really no chance that that both would happen. Moved back. I started working with the local chamber here, part-time job. And then a good high school friend of mine, he had started a clothing company called Peach State Pride.
Okay.
And so I jumped on that with him, and, it's huge now, but at the time, I mean, he was like literally ironing the design on the back of t-shirts, and I was going out and selling them. So that was fun. And then Chick-fil-A called a few months later and said, hey, we're putting this store in Cordele. Do you want to come interview for it? And I mean, so it was really like a miracle kind of dream come true that it would ever happen. And so, so I operated it for 10 years. It opened in 2013. And then, just over the last few years, I've just felt kind of the calling to be home. We lived here. We go to church here. Our boys go to school here. And so Cordele is fantastic, but it's an interstate. It's a holiday weekend store. And so with Jess Farman, and I felt like I was starting to miss out on a lot with the boys once they started school. And so we really love the opportunity and the idea of being able to open one in Americus. And
so did corporate call you, or did you kind of call corporate and say, hey, what are the options here?
Yeah. So it's funny. We knew about it a few years ago, and it just was not the right timing at the time. And it's crazy because that ended up being a couple of months before COVID happened. And I look back on that and think that God really had his hand in that, because we would have moved right in the middle, and then it probably would have been delayed. And so it would have been a mess. And so, about a year, 2 years now, I called corporate and said, hey, is that still on the table? I feel like we're at a different state now. And my boys my third one will start school next year. And so, we really want to look at that opportunity of being able to open one in Americus. And so, so the way it works, I mean, they do everything with real estate. You don't have a lot. They purchase the land, build the store. You don't do any of that. So, and so I had to interview for Americus just like I did Cordele. And, so it was great. So we opened in November, and it's been wonderful. I'm just a few miles from the farm and right here close to the boys. And I don't know if it's great, but they come through every day for their ice cream cone. And so we've had to like cut that back a lot. So it's, and we love Americus. I mean, we really do. We're passionate about seeing Americus grow and the people here. And so I love getting to be a part of that and kind of being a part of the bridge that connects people in Americus. I think that's one of the cool things that Chick-fil-A does is it just connects people. And it's one of my favorite things about being a part of it.
When we heard that you guys were coming, we were super excited, I think, along with everyone else. And hopefully Americus has represented really well to you guys to say, we're so glad that you're here and serving this community. It's in a great location. We love it. It's like 4 blocks from us. So we're all about it. It's a great, I love y'all's breakfast. It's really good. So one of the things we talked a little bit about leadership. I mean, it's all tied in there. Even the way that we communicate with others. I think, I think it was John Maxwell who said, what did he say? I think I wrote it down somewhere. All right, here we go. Yeah. Everything rises and falls on leadership. I think that's a really great, like even when I'm at a store or a restaurant and I feel like I've been, not, I haven't connected well with the people that are serving. A lot of times I don't really get frustrated with them. I kind of get frustrated with leadership. I'm like, maybe they weren't taught something. Maybe there was an expectation that was missed out. And I feel like it's more of a leadership. Like I want to go talk to their leader and say, hey, how did this person get to this place? And so, because I believe everything does rise and fall in leadership. And so what I've already seen here, thank you so much for just continuing that culture, pressing into that with the students. I do know this, that in Americus, one of the things that's always on this podcast is students. How can we love on our students? How do we connect with our students? So you're kind of in that world. Students are coming in, even at a pretty young age. I think you guys can bring them on when they're like, 16, 15, somewhere around in there. So 16. You're kind of seeing students come through. How do they communicate with you certain things, whether it's in Americus or just in general, that you feel like the city needs to be more aware of so they can connect with students that are here?
Yeah, I think the first thing I would want anybody in Americus to know is we have some great students here. I mean, some unbelievable just caliber, whether it's high school. So right now at Chick-fil-A, we had 7 high schools that we pulled from, when we opened. And then, of course, a lot of GSW students as well. But I think sometimes, one of the biggest questions I got when we began to open the restaurant in Americus, it was like, well, who are you going to hire? And I think sometimes it gets a bad rap, and we've found the opposite. I mean, we've found some incredible young kids, and they are hungry for people to invest in them, right? Yeah. And just it goes back to what I was talking about, expecting the best for people and just encouraging them. And so we found that here, just, they're looking for a place that feels like home to them, that they can, people that do care about them. And so I love that we provide that for not only our team members, but like I love nothing more than in the dining room to see a group of college kids out there studying. Or, a place hanging out after school. I love to see them, even if they're not buying anything, they'll back their trucks up in the parking lot and they're hanging out. I love that. Like I want to be a place for them that they feel safe, they feel cared for. Yes. And so, because I'm excited about the future we have at Americus, the youth. So.
Yeah. What would you say are maybe some of the things that in the future, when we think about, Americus 5-10 years from now, what are some things that you hope to see in Americus that will help build, especially with students that as they grow up, they go to college, that they would potentially want to even reinvest in Americus and stay here and help out? What are some things that you would hope to see that would encourage that?
I know. It's so funny. Right when you say that, of course, my personal interests come to mind. I would love a Target and a Publix, just those two. But more along the lines of students, and I think they would enjoy that too. But, I think about, we lived in Athens for over 6 years, and we love Athens. We're diehard Bulldogs. But one of the things when I think about Athens and what makes it so great is the energy in Athens, right? It just has this energy about it. Everybody there they have a growth mindset. They're trying to grow themselves. They're trying to better their family. They're trying to better their community. Yeah. And I think for Americus, that's one of the things we need most. Yeah. Is people like that are excited about the future. They're working to better them, not only themselves but everybody around them. Yeah. And that's what makes young people, they going back to purpose. It's like they love a mission or purpose that they can get behind and have opportunities to grow themselves. And so I want to see Americus like take pride in the things that we do have, like GSW, South Georgia Tech. Those are both fantastic colleges. And so I want us to, one of my things, I mean, obviously the University of Georgia is huge, but you go to Athens, you see Georgia stuff everybody. I mean, everywhere, we're in a college town. Yeah. And, I want Americus, like us, to get more behind the things that we have and be proud of them. I was having a conversation with another leader in the community, and we were talking about a leadership role in the community. And they said, well, who would want to move here? And I thought, this is a great place to live. Yeah. But you're only seeing the negative, right? Yeah. And so, but for us to get better, we got to keep focusing on the positive and making those better. And so, and making it a great place for young people to not only come to school here, but want to stay here, right? Yeah. Raise a family in. It's got to be a great place to raise a family in too. Yeah. So.
No, I think that's really great. And I've talked a little bit about values, because being even a next level neighbor, that's kind of our thing, is learning how to neighbor well together individually. How do we engage? Intentionality is one of our values. Sacrifice, vulnerability is really, really huge. I think another one of those is wonderment is one of ours as well. So it's a really great word. But also that idea of growth. There's also competing values for any city, right? So there's values that are traditionally here that would compete with some of those things. So, for example, we had somebody on the podcast and they used the value of like stability is a good value, but if it's stronger than growth, then you can't grow, because that the value of stability is like, no, we're not willing to take those risks. Because when you grow, it's probably going to be a little messy, right? Having kids, multiplying, there's going to be a lot of mess. There's going to be, new things. And so you've got to be able to have some of those values. What are some other ingredients for what you call it a growth mindset that would help people to kind of release that?
So I'm going to give you the serve model real quick. So Chick-fil-A, we have the serve model. I'm getting ready to go to the Dominican Republic to teach it to some business leaders over there. So it's Mark Miller has a book on it. So it's great. So he's our Chick-fil-A kind of leader guru guy. But the first one is see and shape the future. So leaders have to be able to see the future that they want, and then put the things in place to shape it along the way.
Yep.
E is engage and develop others. So, and it's what you're talking about, like all kinds of people. We got to be able to engage them and develop them.
Yeah.
And it goes back to those young people. Like that's what we're trying to do. The R is reinvent continuously. And so just, that goes along with what you're saying about being stable. Sometimes we take something that's good, but instead of saying, well, let's make it great, we go, well, that's good enough.
Yeah.
And, and so a great leader, they're always looking for ways to reinvent. And then the V is to value relationships and results. So a lot of our leaders at Chick-fil-A, anybody, you either lean one way. You're either, wired to numbers, or you love people but a business or even a city, you gotta have both. And so, and it's important to value both of those. And then E is to embody the values that they really embody the values that they stand for. And, going back to that example of Truett, I think that's one of the things that's made Chick-fil-A so successful is he really embodied, everything that Chick-fil-A stood for.
That's good. That's good. There's so many different definitions for leadership. What's your definition that you love to kind of use the most when it comes to leadership, whether it's the principle or a statement or a definition? How do you define leadership?
Oh man, I don't often define it it's hard. That's a great question, and one I probably should be able to. But to me, it is serving. Leading is serving. Yeah. And it's as simple as that. You can't do one without the other. Yeah. And I've been fortunate. I don't feel like I always do it great, but I've been fortunate to, starting with my dad, watching him. I mean, he was the same on the football field as he was at home, as he was in the weight room, as he was teaching Sunday school. Yeah. And he was all about the other person, almost sacrificial, totally. And then, of course, with Chick-fil-A, watching Truett and just so many great leaders in Chick-fil-A. And that's what the great ones do. I mean, they just serve. That's what they do. Yeah. They just live it out. So, I love it. Yeah. And so when you do that, that's when you have influence. Yep.
Yeah. Well, like you said, we're just going to continue to invest, not just like you said, not just the company Chick-fil-A, but your values. You're going to continue to invest into students and into your conversations with adults and friends and networking. I'd love to hear real quick when you get a chance to talk about Americus with others. Yeah. Like someone from Atlanta or whatever. Yeah. Hey, so tell me about your town. How do you describe Americus to others?
Well, I always say something about the gnats, because if I had to literally, that's the one thing I cannot get past is the gnats. I don't think I ever will. But yeah, so I tell people, I just had a conversation yesterday with somebody at Chick-fil-A about it. And I'm like, in the last 5 years, I'm more excited about Americus than I ever have been. Wow. I've seen more growth here. There's people in leadership that they want the best for Americus, and so I'm excited about that. I'm excited. Leaders are working together, and And that's a big piece of it, you know.
Yeah.
And I love the small town life. The people here are incredibly generous, and they just care greatly. And so I was even having a conversation with a leader of mine that's at Chick-fil-A. He's not from here. He moved here to work with me, and we were just talking about that. He said, you know, the people here just they're so caring. And he's been in some other places, and definitely, you know, we don't always get that experience in the drive-through when customers are frustrated because their fries aren't full or they've been waiting too long. But generally here, I mean, people are very generous, and they're just thankful that we're here. And so it says a lot about the town. It really does. So I'm excited about Americus and the future, and I'm excited to be a part of it.
Yeah. All right. I have to ask this question. Where did the phrase "see you tomorrow"? Do you know where that originated from?
See you tomorrow. Okay.
Yes.
So just like Spill Joy is a Chick-fil-A Americas thing, that is a Albany thing. You're from Albany, right?
Yes.
Okay. So that operator down there is
No way.
KJ Worry. I'm going to give him a shout out here. Yeah.
Yeah.
So they only say that at his restaurants.
Oh my
That's
goodness.
like his thing.
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
See you tomorrow. And it's awesome. Sometimes I feel guilty though, and they say it to me, and I'm like, oh, you won't see me tomorrow though. You know, like I don't, should I go on and tell you that? I don't know. Because it kind of makes me feel bad. But that's his thing.
Yeah,
and
that's great.
They say it. One thing you'll hear some of our people say is "make it great." So that's something Jess and I have said from the first year we got married. Instead of saying "have a great day," we say "make it a great day." Yeah. And so a lot of our Chick-fil-A people here will say that, and that's just a local thing. So it's neat. You know, every Chick-fil-A is individually owned and operated. So they each kind of have their own personality. And
I did not know that it was just they're personal like that.
It is just a KJ in Albany. But see, that's what's so cool is that you think it's you know, a Chick-fil-A thing, but he's made it that
because it reminded me of like, all right, they're already serving me today. So I'm already here. But their expectation is in my thought was they're caring for me now, and they want to see me tomorrow. Like they want to see me tomorrow. I'm like, this is so nice. It makes me feel
guilty. Like,
I'm probably not going to come tomorrow, but I'm so glad that you want to see me tomorrow. And, no, that's great. That's great. Well, let me do this. We normally what we do at the end of the podcast is we'll do what we call rapid fire questions. So these are maybe just kind of quick questions that you can kind of answer, you know, within a few seconds, just to get a chance to get to know you a little bit more. And so we're going to go ahead and do that. So I'm going to ask you a few questions. Let me start with this. Do you have a favorite book that you have read or that you would recommend? A favorite book?
Oh, gosh, in what category? Right now I'm reading a book on habits. Atomic Habits is really good. So I'm reading that now.
What's it called?
Atomic Habits.
Atomic Habits. Okay.
Habits.
Nice. All right. Okay. I have not heard that one, but I will definitely look it up because I love habit stuff. Are you a morning person or are you a night person?
I'm a night owl.
You're a night owl. Okay.
A night owl for sure.
That is all right. Is that when your juices are flowing? I mean, that's what's going on.
I really want to be a morning person. Like I really do. I've tried everything to be a morning person. My husband wakes up with the sun. It's so annoying. Oh gosh. And I want to be, but it's just, again, it's going back to you got to know who you are. And I'm a night owl. I love it. So the best ideas come at 2 a.m.
I love it. Well, and you'll probably notice this too as the kids grow up. That's when they want to talk. They want to talk at like 11 or 12 o'clock at night.
Well,
all right. Well, I'm up. Let's do it.
I'll be there for it. Jess will not, however.
That's right. That's right. So just give them an update in the morning. All right. If you could go anywhere in the world, where would you go?
Ooh, anywhere in the world?
Anywhere in the world.
Man, that's hard too. Probably, there's a part of me that really wants to go to Australia.
Okay.
I don't really know why. I've always wanted to go though.
Yeah.
But there's so many places. But probably if I had to say my favorite place to go, we have a little family cabin on Lake Hartwell where I grew up.
Oh, that's great.
And it is my favorite place in the whole wide world. And
Wow.
my grandfather, I just learned so many like life lessons, got so many memories. And so,
Oh, that's great.
if you ask anybody that knows me well, like where would MeriBeth go if it literally would be to this lake shack in Northeast Georgia. Yeah, love it.
All right. What's a favorite family activity you guys like to do together?
Favorite family activity.
Mm-hmm.
Right now in the summer, we've done a lot of like after we eat supper, we go get popsicles and sit on the front porch, and we just hang out. And so that's been a fun time with the boys this summer, just to talk about their day. And but we love going to the lake and skiing, and we've gotten to the wake surfing, and
Nice.
so we love just a long day on the lake with our family, and that's probably where we're making some of our best memories right now.
Love it. Okay. Do you eat breakfast? And if you do, what do you normally have for breakfast?
Okay, I used to be feet hit the ground to get breakfast. But probably for the last 5 years, my husband got on kind of this fasting thing.
Yep.
And so he started me on it. And so I've become a coffee drinker, which has been a big deal. I've never drank coffee before, but he's like, MeriBeth, you have to be able to drink coffee. We got to be old together and drink
that's
coffee,
right.
in
Gotta
the
have coffee,
mornings.
yep.
And so it was something I set out to do. I always drank like a horrible energy drink in the morning that was terrible for you. So I gave that up about a year ago, and
Nice.
I started drinking coffee like half of it was creamer, but I've gotten it
Yeah,
down.
that's right. So you're working your way down. Yep.
Yeah. So it's probably maybe a fourth now, but so I'm still working on it. But no, so right now I'm not eating breakfast, but if I do, I'll grab something at Chick-fil-A when I get there later on.
All right. What are some of your favorite restaurants, whether that's in town in Americus or just places you like to go to eat?
Ooh, so here every Tuesday we have Taco Tuesday. So we love Taco Ray.
Okay. Yeah.
Love. So we go there every Tuesday. Of course, and then of course Euro City is so good. I mean, there's a lot in Americus that we're fortunate to have some good restaurants. Sweet Georgia. I mean, there's so many. And of course, Athens. I mean, there's some awesome restaurants in Athens that we like. My husband and I, we love to go to like the local dives. So like when we're traveling, I know a lot of Chick-fil-A people they only eat at Chick-fil-A. So we're not that way. We're gonna find like the local hole in the wall, like barbecue place. We love trying out local places. So
I love it. All right, last question.
Okay.
If you could be an expert in anything new right now, what would you love to be able to just know how to do and be really good at it?
Probably technology. I find myself like on a daily basis getting frustrated because I'm not as tech savvy as I wish, and then all my team members around me are like looking at me like the grandma in the room.
Yeah, that's right.
And they're like figuring it out in seconds, and I'm like Googling it because I hate to ask them for help. I'm so embarrassed. And so I'll like Google it and then go through the steps, and then they're like, MeriBeth, just give it to me. And then, I mean, and so I really wish I was super tech savvy. That's what, like on my day to day, I'll say that to myself, like, man, I just wish I knew more about the tech world, but
that would be a great skill. Absolutely.
Yeah, but I'm thankful for my team members that surround me that help me in that world.
Yes.
So,
I can kind of get myself around a few things, but then if it goes into like step 3 or 4, I'm like, I got nothing. I got nothing. I can get it started. So, all right. Well, MeriBeth, thank you so much for coming on the podcast, sharing a little bit of your story, talking about Spill Joy, and these principles that go, again, so much further than just how do you enjoy your work? How do you enjoy even just kind of your family? Your whole life needs to be around this purpose. And I really thank you for sharing that, your story, and how it's impacted you, and hopefully it's going to continue to impact others. And so thank you so much for being in Americus, for investing into Americus. And hopefully in the next 5-10 years, we're going to continue to see things like this as we invest into students and empower them to bring change, to bring growth, have that growth mindset. I think that's probably the best thing, because sometimes we think, especially as a small town, we think change means bad, or we mean growth means can be bad, but really what you really want is a thriving city. And a thriving city can still be small, but still have very, very powerful things in it. And so I think we need to have a growth mindset. And I think we're getting poised for that. We're getting postured for that. So thank you so much for coming on the podcast and sharing a little bit of your story.
Thank you. Thank you for what y'all are doing. This is great. So it was an honor.
All right. Thank you. All right. That's it.
Is that it?
That's it. You did it.